The beatbox scene has taken a whole new direction about 4 years ago. The greatest beatboxers in the world have understood the potential of the human voice. Beyond melodies, basses and drum patterns, many of us are interested in crazy sound combinations. Maybe you're wondering how to create your own beatbox combos, whether by using drum sounds or special sounds. And that's the question I will answer in this video. The first step to creating your own sound combinations goes by the understanding of the rhythm, as much theoretically as practically. You need to understand how a rhythm is built to be able to play around with it. Take a 4/4 beat, put it kicks and snares as shown in the image, and put hi-hats in between and you get the following beat. There you have a basic beatbox drum beat. We have kicks and snares on the beat, and we have the hi-hats on the offbeat. We call this time subdivision 8th note, because we have 8 notes or 8 strokes per bar. Subdivide the whole thing by 2 and you have 16th note in a whole bar. Place hi-hats in the beat and it sounds like this. There exists the triplet variation of 8th note, which sounds like this. And the triplets of 16th note. There you have 4 time subdivisions that you can already play with. To go further, you can watch the free video on my beatbox training kit that's about the rhythmical skills. Download link is in the description. To be 100% transparent with you, the video is in French, but you have the English subtitles. Okay, now let's create a combo with basic drum sounds. We are going to take a 16th note basic beat, and we will replace the beat with other sounds. For example, this creates a whole new groove thanks to the PF snares, and we can even spice up the things by replacing the on the last beat with the I'm using an inward K snare, an inward mess snare, say miss and pinch your lips, and yeah, we have this. In the whole beat, this sounds like this. And now you can play the 2 beats in ABAB scheme, for example. Or you can use it as a drum fill in a slower beat, for example, like. We are going to go through another example, and let's say I have a basic trap beat in my head. And let's say I want to add a clean and fast but not too fast pattern in my beat. And for this I will go in 8th note between beat 1 and beat 3. For this example I will take a pattern that I know, which is and in my beat, at the second bar, it will sound like this. And now I can fill up the basic beat to emphasize my pattern. Now maybe your question is, how can I know which sounds to use? Actually, I would say just go with what you know, with the sounds that you know how to combine. I'm sure you use sounds that you play one after the other. For me, oftenly it is or but yeah, for the basic drum sounds you have many sounds that go one after the other, like the Just play around with the basics and you will find sounds that go one after the other. The most important, I would say, is that you know what you are doing, is that you are able to break down what you are doing. Like in this example, I know each sound, each stroke is clearly defined. make it sharp to execute it correctly, and yeah, that's it. Placing the sounds in the time subdivisions is the key to creating beatbox fillers. For example, in this pattern, I could replace the 16th note pattern by an 8th note triplet pattern. Instead of I could do which is a triplet. That's it for creating combos with drum sounds. Let's move on to the next step for creating combos with special sounds. I really think you can go further by identifying the special sounds that you have. And for example, I do have this sound, which is a variation of the rim shot. So instead of doing I can do. The most important thing to be able to create combos with special sounds is that you have special sounds. In the first place, learn new sounds and master them. Let's take back the 16th note pattern with the drum sounds, which was, and I can use the sound in this pattern. I recently found that the sounds go really nicely with the, and I can have this combo. And maybe I can implement it in my beat. So instead of having, I can have, and I can create other variations by just replacing the sounds, experimenting stuff. Yeah, just try stuff. And there I already have two variations, and I can insert them in a freestyle, for example. And I can create as many variations as I want just by experimenting stuff. I will take another example in 16th note triplet, which is definitely a good thing to level up your speed in beatbox, because you have many sounds in a beat. And for this, I will start from a pattern that I know, which is this pattern only uses drum sounds, and I will enhance it by using more specific sounds. In this pattern, there is a rim shot, which I can replace by a. So instead of I can go with. This pattern has two sounds, but I can replace the first one with a. And let's say I can replace my snare by a click roll whistle snare, which is one of my favorite sounds. So the whole combo sounds like this. And in a freestyle, that's how I process to create new combos, whether I use only drum sounds or special sounds. And that's what you can do too. Start from the beats you know, if they are on time. If you have timing issues, please make sure your beats are on time. Know your time subdivisions and master the beats that you do. And your way of creating combos will be unique and different because you have your own sounds, your own groove, and yeah, that's how you can create great things. Before moving on to the two last steps, let me sum up what we saw. In the first place, you need to know your rhythmical subdivisions. Know what is 8th note, 16th note, be able to play around with it. That's super important because that's how you will master the rhythm, and that's how you will be able to create combos with no major difficulty. Second step, if you have no patterns at all, create your patterns through the time subdivisions by implementing the sounds, like for example, start from a beat and you can add sounds like. That's a first pattern, for example. After this, when you have enough patterns, you can create some more by just replacing the sounds. Create your own rhythms, your own patterns, your own vocabulary, or take from others if that can help as well without copying, but just being inspired from them. And then the third step, from the patterns you know, replace some of the drum sounds with special sounds. Special sounds doesn't mean it is a sound that you invented. It can be just a non-drum sound, like it can also be a drum sound, but something that is less common. For example, I like doing the snare or the technique. Let's move on to the two last tips. A quick tip that makes the difference is that you can balance the sounds that you use. If you use only sounds that have low frequencies or only high frequencies, the listeners will feel a lack of balance in your sound spectrum. So preferably use bassy and high sounds. Like in my example, I know the goes well with the because the is a pretty much high sound and the has low frequencies. I also know that the which is pretty high goes well with the and for example I can do identify your low and high sounds and try to make them one after the other. And the last tip is the execution. Hard now doesn't mean that it is impossible to execute. When I first came out with the idea of this beat, it was literally impossible to execute because the sound wasn't coming out properly. It was always or but it didn't come out properly and the wasn't so clean. It sounded like this when I first had the idea of this beat. Something like this. Okay, so now I worked it slowly and then faster, and I just kept practicing for a few weeks and I came out with this beat. And I could perform it as I wanted after this. And then I even made it more complex by adding speed snares. And when I mastered this technique, the previous one suddenly became way easier. Think yourself as an athlete or a super saiyan, just keep practicing and keep getting better. Thanks for watching. You can leave a comment if you found this valuable or if you have any question, and you can subscribe to my YouTube channel not to miss the later videos. In the meantime, work well, and you can watch any other videos if you want to learn more about beatbox. Esh!